Hey, welcome to the Recalibrate Podcast, the first episode of the Recalibrate Podcast with Leon Lopez. This is a show that allows us to look at who we are, where we are in life, and to discuss changing for the better, right? Changing our habits, changing who we are. Okay, so I was listening to something the other day, and it was a podcast, and the host was asking his guest, what is your identity? And I'm driving in my car, which is when I listen to podcasts for the most part, and I'm thinking, man, that's a loaded question, okay? Like, what do you say if you're asked that same question? What's your identity? Now, so I'm sitting there driving, and identity, I think, it's about what makes you unique, right? How you define yourself and what feels true to you, even as you grow and change over time. So who are you right now, okay? I thought this was going to be a great topic to kind of blend what this show is going to be about, but to also kind of catapult us into the guests that we're going to have, the topics we're going to discuss, right? So, you know, who are you right now? Is it who you thought you'd be? Chances are, if you're being real with yourself, and I'm a realist, most of us pictured our lives a little different from where we actually wound up, where you actually are today. Now, let me clarify. That's not necessarily a bad thing. After all, there's a lot of influencers or influences in our lives that have brought us to this very point. I once heard, and I love this, that we are a reflection, or we're a percentage or partially made up of the 5 people we spend the most time with. Now think about that. Think about the 5 different people in your life who you spend the most time with. Chances are you are a little reflection of each of them. The things we like or dislike, what we watch or listen to, how active we are, our good and our bad habits, they're all reinforced by those that we spend time with. So, for instance, when we're born, or even just probably more as a young child, right, when we start to learn, we adopt a lot from our parents, our brothers and sisters, and anyone else that may have lived with you in the beginning of your life, right? Those influences can make us act a certain way, believe a particular idea, or place value on certain things, right? So I grew up with both my parents in the home and 4 siblings. I had 2 brothers, 2 sisters, and kind of in that order. I had an older sister, older brother, then there's me smack dab in the middle, younger brother, younger sister. And I can honestly agree with that statement. I was definitely a little bit of all of them growing up. I would kind of take on, we had similar interests, right? But the funny thing was as well, like they would do certain things, or maybe they like certain things that I completely disliked. So it kind of helped mold me into what I liked and what I didn't like. Then the teen years hit, right? And suddenly our parents, for most of us, our parents are not the number one influence in our lives. Most of us tend to kind of flock or follow a new sphere of influence. Now, that's not to say that we've abandoned our families in any way. Some do, but not everybody, right? But we're introduced to new characters in life, our friends, or what we're watching on TV, or probably more nowadays on social media, celebrity influences, and all of a sudden there's a blending of what we've been taught and what we're experiencing on our own. This kind of develops a new version of ourselves. Now, the teen years, the potential issue of this, of course, is the lack of wisdom available to a young developing mind, right? Are the parents or any responsible adult present, or at the very least available, when it comes time for a young person growing up in their teen years to form great habits as a result of all this new information? We internalize so much of what we experience, right? It can be difficult for a young person to conclude what's right, what do I like, right? And that's probably in the teen years, that's probably one of the biggest lies that we tell ourselves that we like something, and we're only saying it because maybe a friend does or someone who we have we care about. But what do I like, and or on the flip side, like what will consequences be for certain actions that I do? If you don't have that responsible person present in your life at this time, everything you're learning is going to kind of influence all of these important decisions, right? A lot of the times people grow up like this, and with all this unfiltered knowledge that they don't really know how to compartmentalize, it can cause conflict. Conflict with parents, with your family as a whole, or friends, or teachers, coaches, and the list goes on, right? Ultimately, we fumble forward like this for years, never truly identifying ourselves, what makes us unique, because we have all these outside noises that we're listening to, and we're trying to find out who we want to be. What makes us happy? What do we like? And ultimately, what's best for me, right? Or what's best for you? In that time span, we get jobs, we grow up, we go to school, maybe you join the military, or maybe you're just living at home with mom and dad, right? Going well into adulthood for most of us, we've picked up bad habits. Maybe we've added some pounds, we dropped out of school, maybe we have no money saved. We feel, or we can feel like we missed the boat, right? On what we originally wanted to do, or who we wanted to be. I think one day we wake up and we ask that age-old question, right? Like, how did I get here? This goes for almost all of us. I truly believe this, right? Whether you're single, married, or divorced, if you have kids or no kids, if you're rich, poor, you think you're in the middle class, or maybe you're just flat out broke, if you're skinny or heavy, healthy or sick, man, there's something in our life we would like to change. I believe that's an honest statement for a lot of us, if not all of us. Something we'd like to start or stop completely, okay? I think everybody wants to get a little better. And if you say that you don't, then I truly believe that you're lying to yourself. If you really stop and ask yourself, do I want to get better, or should I stop this bad habit? I think for most people, the answer would be yes. And by making a change, right, we alter our identity. And to me, that's the fun part in all this. And in starting this podcast and speaking to the guests that we're going to have on this show, that's going to be the fun part. There's this great phrase. Again, I heard it on a different podcast. This was not the person who originally came up with it. I think it was Confucius. Everybody lives two lives. The second one begins when you realize you only have one. Everyone has two lives. The second one begins when you realize you only have one. So for me, at the age I am right now, this phrase has definitely kicked in, like, holy shit, I've wasted a lot of time. I've taken advantage of opportunities, or I didn't take advantage of opportunities that I probably should have. I ignored really sound advice from very smart people, and you feel that, that old father time thing kind of coming up on you. And I love that phrase. I think it's so relevant for this particular show and the guests that we're going to have on. It's going to tie into what changes they made in order to make their lives better, right? Maybe you're that type of person who lives paycheck to paycheck, and you want to get better at handling your finances, or just saving money in general. Or maybe you want to get better in your health or your fitness, right? For me, that's been me for years. I have struggled up and down in weight, fitness, different plans, what to eat, what not to eat, drinking, going through phases, no drinking, like trying to find that happy balance. But that might not be you. Maybe you want to become that do-it-yourself type person and learn how to, I don't know, grow a garden or change the oil in your car, right? You want to start reading more, or you want to travel, learn another language, learn to cook certain foods. I mean, the bottom line is, whether it's something small or re-engaging after a completely life-changing event, all of us want to be the happiest version of ourselves. You don't have to settle for where you are at this very moment in time. But we do need to be honest with ourselves. How do we go about that? After all, it's It's always easier said than done, right? How do we start that action? We need to find our approach in order to get better. I think that's, it's kind of common sense. We need to recalibrate our own minds, but then follow up with action. And how do we do that? Okay. So what does it even mean to recalibrate? It's the name of the show. It's, how are you, the listener, taking that word? Okay. So there's two ways to look at it. There's the literal meaning, of course, but then there's that human connection side. Okay. The literal meaning, and I'll read this for you. Recalibration in the literal sense refers to the process of adjusting the precision and accuracy of a device or system. Okay. Think of a clock, right? It's fallen behind in time. We've all had this in our home or your watch or whatever. To recalibrate that clock or your watch, it means to adjust the mechanisms so it tells the correct time again. Simple, right? This process basically ensures that the clock functions correctly and efficiently, and you just maybe have to do it periodically, change the batteries or whatever. But you recalibrate that clock to make sure it's working. On the human side, to recalibrate, it follows the same line as the literal sense, but it changes just a little bit because now we're dealing with our own thought process, right? So recalibration means taking a step back to assess our lives, identifying those areas that are just out of sync or that you just want to improve. Okay, they don't have to be completely out of whack, but just something that you want to improve, and then taking the action to adjust that, to adjust like our behaviors or our bad habits, but more specifically our mindset, right? Just like the clock or the watch that you wear. Hey man, sometimes we just need to reset ourselves. And this involves starting a new process with positive habits and eliminating the detrimental ones, right? Now, to make a change is a big deal. I think we can all agree with that because we are creatures of habit. So whether it's starting better habits or stopping the bad ones, I think it comes down to 4 basic steps. This is what I've found in my own life. And I'm going to be curious as we have guests on if they can assess to this, right? These 4 steps. So the first step in recalibrating is self-assessment. Now, I will tell you from experience, self-evaluating yourself is one of the most challenging things you can do. Because really, that means you did something wrong, you're doing something wrong, or you're not doing enough to help yourself, right? You have to be brutally honest. Block out the noise and influences from outside your own mind. Identify the areas in your life that need adjustment. Are there habits that are holding you back, or are there just new things that you want to incorporate into your daily routine? Okay, so that's the first one, is that self-assessment or self-evaluating. Number 2, once you've identified those areas of improvement, you have to set clear, achievable goals. Okay, so for example, let's just go with fitness. Okay, so if you wanted to start exercising regularly, you got to begin with a specific plan. You just can't wake up day to day with no plan, no goal, and expect success. A specific plan, like 30 minutes of exercise 3 times a week, right? It's simple enough. Side note, I want to say right here, we have some amazing guests coming in that are going to blow your mind with getting back on track in fitness and health in general. There's some really great ones coming up. Okay, so number 3, this is where the recalibration actually happens. Okay, implement the changes you've planned. So take an action. It could be as simple as replacing, evening TV with a walk. And this, of course, is still staying like on the fitness thing, right? So taking a walk, but it means you have to get up and do whatever that thing is, whatever change you want to make. You have to take action. And if it's a bad habit you're trying to break, it might mean replacing it with something else in the moment that you feel like doing that bad thing. Okay, the old, I have a member in my family who smoked cigarettes. And in order to break that habit, when they had that feeling, they had to keep their hands moving. So he had like a Rubik's Cube or these little little toys on the end table in his living room to keep his hands moving. He'd stand up and he would just kind of like preoccupy his mind. And of course, there was the gums and all sorts of stuff as well. But it means replacing that bad habit. Okay, and then finally, the key to successful recalibration is consistency. Okay, and I think you have to keep working on your new habits until they just become part of your routine. I was reading the other day, and it was these short stories on people, and I came across this story on J.K. Rowling. And we all know J.K. Rowling from the Harry Potter series, and I mean, just I think most of us are aware of her great success after the books, but I wasn't really aware of what it took for her to get there. So I'll share this with you real quick because I think it's one hell of a recalibrating story, right? So picture this: is the early 1990s. J.K. Rowling's dealing with some serious life changes, man. She had just lost her mom. Her marriage was falling apart. And at this point, after her divorce, she's a single mom living on welfare in Scotland. Okay? Tough spot, no doubt. She's battling depression and barely scraping by financially. I think a lot of people, if you're not there right now, man, a lot of people have either hit that road, and hopefully you don't, but this is a bad spot. Death in the family, divorce, single mom, so you got crazy responsibilities and you're broke. Just feeling absolutely depressed. So this is where the story gets interesting. Instead of letting these hardships define her, although I'm sure she's human, I'm sure it took a little bit of time, but instead of letting it define her forever, she decides to take control of her life. She recalibrates, so to speak. She focuses on a dream she had for a long time, which was writing a book. And this was a pivotal moment, right? A clear shift in her life's direction. Despite everything going on, she commits to her writing, right? Taking that action. She's in cafes. She got her pad and pen with her, penning the first Harry Potter book while her daughter was like literally napping beside her in these restaurants and in the booths and stuff. It's a testament to using whatever resources and time you've got to chase whatever that dream is, right? Okay, so now there's a lesson in persistence, okay? J.K. Rowling faced rejection after rejection from the publishers, okay? But she doesn't give up. She keeps pushing, submitting her manuscript until Bloomsbury Publishing in London finally gives her a shot. Because having that unwavering vision is crucial. If you're going to meet your goal, you have to convince yourself, man. It isn't just about convincing others, but it's about truly believing in what it is you set out to do. So for her, going back to Rollins, it's what keeps her going despite all the obstacles, right? So her big breakthrough comes in 1997, publication of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or the Sorcerer's Stone, as it was known here in the U.S., but overseas it was a Philosopher's Stone. Don't shoot the messenger. But the book takes off, and the rest is kind of history. Obviously, we've all seen the movies. Rowling's recalibration turns her life around completely, right? Recognizing, man, what is wrong in my life. And sometimes something that you've identified as the problem, that self-evaluation, maybe it's nothing that you brought on yourself. I mean, some cases it is. My story is. But sometimes other folks, it may be something that happened to you, not because of your own actions, but just to you, right? In her case, going from living on welfare to becoming one of the most successful authors of all time. Her story, undoubtedly, absolutely amazing. But we all know people. We've all heard of people, and not necessarily celebrities. Some of them are in our own families or friends or some people we work with. We all know people who have equally amazing journeys and transformations, right? So as humans, we have the ability to assess, adjust, and improve our own lives if we want to. This is why I started this podcast, because each of us have what it takes to be the people we want to be, no matter what has happened to us. We cannot be victims of our circumstances. I think that's accepting the fact that you're a victim it sets you at that crossroad. One path, you can either remain that victim in which case I believe you're just going to always find excuses to stay the victim. The other road, yeah, you might be a victim of something that occurred to you, but you can take that path that's going to drive you away from letting that thing define you. This podcast is going to discuss things that will help us change. And we're going to meet great people who have done exactly that. And we'll discuss what they did to get to where they're at, right? Tap into other people's secrets and those life hacks, right? Because I truly believe people can change. And we're going to talk about it. You may not have any say in what happened in your life, but you can change what you do about it and how you move forward. So, come with me. Let's explore who we are capable of becoming, because wherever your path has led you, no matter how hard life can be, no matter how far you've fallen, you're not done. This is the Recalibrate Podcast.